Good morning, and welcome to another inspiring episode of the Good Morning Minute, where we start the day with purpose, passion, and a little bit of power. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and today's conversation is part of our special series in partnership with the Empower Her Steps virtual conference, a movement rooted in helping women rise, heal, and walk boldly into the life God has designed for them. Our mission is simple yet powerful: empowering life purpose, because we believe when a woman finds clarity in her calling, everything changes for her family, her community, and generations to come. So friends, grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and get ready to be uplifted as we dive into real stories, honest lessons, and bold steps towards purpose with our incredible guest. Our guest today is Dorota. Dorota, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is just so exciting.
Yes, and so I'm excited to get to know you even better during our conversation. Before we do so, I'd like to take just a moment for you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, my name is Dorota. I am a nervous system safe decluttering coach, and I help women declutter their homes through nervous system work, changing the beliefs, changing the patterns that hold them. I am originally from Poland. I have moved to England just after I finished university, and then the real life started to happen, like I was on my own. And being in a foreign country is definitely an experience in of it itself, for sure. And I do recommend to anyone really to, move to a different country and try. You really get some like reality checks there for sure. But you can really like test yourself as well, which is wonderful. And a few years back, I completely changed my life through decluttering. That's why I'm so passionate about this topic. And I decided to leave my UK life, my English life behind me. I moved to Poland back with my parents to pursue this dream of helping women. So that's sort of my story in a nutshell.
Well, I can't wait to dive into it a little further. But I agree, because I'm one of those minimalists. I don't like a whole lot, and everything needs to have a functional purpose. I also believe, and I know I come from a background where my dad collected and saved everything that he ever came across, owned, whatever. And I remember when they passed, just going through a garage full of just old pay stubs, like just things that probably shouldn't have been collected. And it was hard, definitely. But I also know that it's good for your mind, body, and spirit to have a functional space, living space. So I can't wait to get into it a little further. Before we do so, I'd like to start with an ice-breaking question. And my question to you is, what's one small thing that makes you smile?
Oh, I love this question. Uh, Oh my gosh, there's like so many things that literally are going through my head right now. Because this is exactly what I also go through with my clients. Like I tell them, find one thing every day to have that. I call this heart expansion moments where your heart just goes like, oh my gosh. So for me, is a sun on my face, cat on my lap, walk in the forest, like those tiny, tiny little moments that just make me feel like, oh my gosh, like this is joy.
That's beautiful. And I can just envision that right now too, because just a warm, sunny day and you're just embracing um, the rays and the nature around you. I love it. All right, Dorota. Well, let's jump into the heart of our conversation. And so I'm going to ask you, what was a defining moment of pain or challenge in your life, and how did it impact you?
This is a heavy question, you know. I don't really talk about this often. I do sometimes, like when I talk about like my story, my background in why I started my decluttering journey. But it was definitely for me the most also eye-opening moment. it was back in 2020, COVID. And I had a cleaning business, cleaning agency at the time, and it was doing really, really well. And then all of a sudden, COVID, I had to go and find a second job, and then country reopened. Like in England, we had on and off lockdowns, in that time, like everywhere else, I suppose. But I ended up working 15 hours a day for like 6 days a week. So clutter really built up for me really, really fast. And the moment that really broke me, but in the same time built me, was when I was sitting at the edge of my bed with so much mess. Like I had paths literally in some of the rooms. And I was like, oh my gosh, like how did I get here? Like I am high functioning, really successful at work. People come to me to ask for, how to do stuff. I'm smart, I'm funny, I'm all like all those like I literally always looked at myself of, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And here I was hiding in this like space that was apart, like it was so apparent that I wasn't that person that I thought I was. And that's when I also understood like why people struggle so much to even just start. And it's really like the pain, like my heart was like, oh my gosh, like it just dropped. And I was like, I cannot live like that. Like this is just ridiculous. The level of shame and guilt on so many levels. It was just ridiculous. Like honestly, really bad. So I decided I need to do something with it, and I have, and that was it impacted. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that moment, because I
Yeah.
did have in the past moments where it was really, really bad, but I never like actually it wasn't that bad, I suppose, in those moments.
Mm. I appreciate you sharing because here's what I'm hearing in that, we as women step into a profession where we are dominating and we're secure and we're confident and we're doing all the things. But we also step into that profession because we have a passion towards it personally too. There's a personal connection. And to see that you're like you said, you're doing well, you're thinking that you're functioning high, at your high priorities and things like that. But then to take a look and go, oh, wow, I really something slipped me here at home, and so now I'm in this situation and I teach others about it. But I think that's important for us to know, because when we talk about like unrealistic goals, it really is unrealistic for you to think that at every day, at every moment, you're going to have it all together. Because even the best of us out there that's really, striving and hitting all those marks, they have a moment where they have to stop and take care of themselves. So let's dive into that a little bit. When you noticed that this was become, like when you finally caught the awareness of it, what was the next step? Like, what was the next thing that you started to do to start kind of recovering the focus back in your personal space?
I am, and sort of my background is, research. Just I always needed to be in control of the information, right? So that's what I did. I was just like, okay, well, let me just, use my brain because I'm good at that. So I went really deep into like finding the solution for me. And at the beginning, I did what everyone else does, give me a checklist, right? How can I just, quickly move through that mess here in my home? And I read the books and I watched all the YouTube videos, and, I tried Marie Kondo method. I read her book like 3 times, like I marked stuff. But really quickly, like it all happened within like a month or two, because I still worked 15 hours a day at that time, right?
Mm.
So, and I was still doing all that like extra stuff to find out like how can I get rid of that clutter? How can I make my life a bit better?
Yeah.
I really quickly realized that none of this is going to work for me, because I wasn't able to sustain it. Like I was always, my whole life, entire life, I was always really fast at the start and like typical ADHD, right? Really fast at the start and then sort of, oh my gosh, like a week later, I forgot that I even had that idea. So I just had to figure out a way how to do it so it would work. And I started with the small, I know everyone says like start with a small step, but I literally started with 1 minute a day. That's all I could afford, in air quotes, I'd say, afford to do time-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it all started evolving. And from there, it's clutter is just also, it's only like a mirror of what's happening in our heads, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, big shout out to all the people pleasers listening, because I bet you have a lot of clutter in your home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a huge, well, recovering people pleaser now, but setting those boundaries. Someone said to me once, how do you protect your energy? And that just blew my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I started.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you went there. I'm glad you said, what's in your surroundings is a reflection of what's going on inside. And that is so important. And I think that is like the base of understanding how your environment is a reflection of your inner peace, right? It's a reflection of what you're feeling inside. And it definitely can elevate situations like depression or anxiety and different things like that. So it is very much a connection. It's a flow of energy. I like that you mentioned energy. Um, and yes, people pleasing, just, talking about that in itself, it's almost like you're giving all of your energy and you're never refilling your cup. So then you get to a point of depletion and then you're not even taking notice. And by the time you do that, that's where, burnouts happen. That's where breakdowns happen, high anxiety, depression, things like that, because my cat likes to get, we are
Love it.
just continue to, just function in those mindsets without ever putting ourselves first. And I think for me, the game changer in that was when someone told me putting yourself first isn't selfish. It's not selfish, it's selfless. Because like the airplane, if you got to put your mask on first before you can save somebody else. And it clicked in that moment, because it's like that's so true. Because if I'm giving everything to everybody, and not replenishing it, then eventually I have nothing else to give.
Yeah, for sure. And there is one more thing, that it just sort of got this like urge to say it now, that we as I call myself a good girl, right? Growing up. So what that term is, and it's generally like it's good girl conditioning. That's sort of how I would phrase it, which is, the good child always gets praised for being good, for being quiet,
Mhm.
for behaving, for not voicing the needs, right? And it's sort of like for us, that's where also a lot of times where people pleasing comes from, sorry, is where we have been conditioned by our parents, caregivers, to pretend, because it's not real, to pretend that we are okay, that everything is fine. And you also said, you mentioned that women historically, there's just so much more pressure to put on us. No one expects from men, and I know I generalize here, but I think it's fitting for just this one moment that in general we don't expect men to do all the things that we expect from women, just
Mhm.
as a society, whether it's in America, whether it's in Europe, it's all the same. And if we quietly take everything on, it has to spill somewhere, right? It's not a container, like we are not, our souls are not like a container where you can just like stuff everything in. And, eventually the cork is going to pop up. And clutter is a symptom. And that's where it's important to understand that, it's not a personal failure
Mhm.
at all. It's not. It's just a condition, it's just a symptom, and it can be dealt with compassion.
Yeah, and I totally get you on this too, because one of my favorite shows to watch, because I am, I have a psychology degree and then also just in human services myself, but is the movie or not the movie, but the show Hoarders, because there's so much more in just the hoarding. It is a mental health condition. It is so much more behind it. It's a place of I work with children in the foster care system and in child welfare and whatnot, and it's kind of a same connection. But when trauma hits, and it's just so magnified and it's so much, it also stunts growth, but it also stunts. Um, not just growth, but like looking at that hoarding and just kind of making that connection, it stunts being able to move on. Like you kind of just stop at this point. I think a lot of loss and grief go behind, being able to grieve loss of family members or whatever. And so they just start collecting everything that ever meant anything to their mothers, their fathers, whoever it is who of significance. So it's almost like they never move past that moment in time. So I just
Yeah,
find that it's just to make that connection as far as mental health and the wellness of my body and spirit, it's very important.
yeah, those shows, like I love watching those shows as well for that exact
Yeah.
reasons, and it made me really realize how deep that can go. But I need to say here that I don't like when people say, and hear me on this, I don't like when people say that they love watching hoarders shows, in the sense of, just pop it on YouTube and you make
Mhm.
yourself feel better because my home is not that bad, right?
Yeah.
And I hate that. I hate that because this is if you the how do I want to say this? Because I don't want to make people angry, but also I need people to hear this, that you really have to think twice what are you saying here, because
Hmm.
you entertaining yourself from someone else's really hard situation. And if you're doing it for fun, then yeah, get out of my world, if you know what I mean. Like I really, here I always put the boundary, and it's hard to explain it to people because sometimes people just say like, yeah, it's a cool show to watch, but if you watch it to make yourself feel better, then I don't think you're a nice person, that kind of thing, right? So
Right.
I
Well,
needed
and
to
and
insert
it's
that
probably
here.
there's a whole other story there to do it
Yeah, yeah, there is
for
there is
sure.
loads. There is loads. That's why it's like for me,
Yeah.
I felt like I needed to mention that because maybe people a lot of times people say it not even being aware of what they actually saying. So maybe
Mhm.
speaking about this is a good way to make people think, oh, why do I actually like watching it? Maybe it's not, maybe I should maybe, think about it twice. That's just my point here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I agree. I definitely agree. And so, Dorota, just kind of going back to your story and the things that you started to do as far as next steps and kind of your growing and your healing when you're working these high hours, 15 hours a day, and I'm sure the stress was a lot and just, it's during COVID, it's, back and forth lockdowns and, and then going back to work and just that whole time in life for us all, I can imagine. So, when did you start to discover like your story had meaning and it was powerful? What was that like for you?
Oh, wow. You know, I cannot pinpoint the exact moment really, but it's funny because I always thought that whatever I did like never interested anyone. right? I never had like a big group of friends. I always kept myself sort of within like a very small circle. But I decided to take my discoveries about decluttering to Instagram, and I started my account in 2021, and it was purely for the first like a year or so, it was just purely like a hobby, right? I was just posting some tips and things that I found helpful. But then people started messaging me saying, "Oh, thank you for sharing. Like I'm feeling seen, like it's not just me." Um, and that really opened my eyes to like, oh, like it's not just me. Like I know that I was suffering in silence, because it's not shame, but there is so much shame attached to it. And I think we have to really collectively like think about it in a different ways, because just because the home is messy, it doesn't mean that's what I thought. I thought I was lazy. I thought I was disgusting. I thought I was gross. I thought I was like the biggest failure because and a self-sabotage and that imposter syndrome, huge, successful on the outside and
Hmm.
just like an absolute failure on the inside. But when people started to say to me, I hear you, like I've been there, thank you for saying this out loud, that was definitely a huge moment.
I think that's something powerful right there, that what you just said is like, outwardly, like when I'm at my job and things like that, like I had it all, the presentation of having it all together was definitely there. But then coming home and understanding like this is where I really am. I think that's important. And it's very powerful that you mentioned that, because it's not that you're a failure or anything like that. It's just that there's something that needs to be addressed, whether that's internally or something. But also too, I mean, it really signifies that it's important to take time for yourself. You can't continue to do the things that you need to do without taking a moment to take care of you, because that's when we see those things start to clutter. Because I almost envision like I've got all these things going on. I don't want to deal with them. I'm gonna box them up and I'm gonna put them in a corner. And that can be like a literal thing too. Like you're actually putting things in a box, setting them over to the side, and I'll go through that stack of mail later. And then by the time you know it, you've got three boxes full of mail that needed to be organized or whatever. But it's just because you're not making time for yourself, or just understanding that you are important. One thing that I used to tell ladies that I would lead is take your time off, be sick if you're going to be sick, because the work will always be there, but you won't. And unfortunately, and I've been told this whenever, whenever I've given my resignations is, well, I've always known that you can be replaced. And and that's kind of hard to hear, but in the corporate eye, or just in the agencies that I worked with, I mean, it's true, they'll hire somebody else to replace the position. Now I cannot be replaced because I bring uniqueness to whatever I step into, but um they can hire somebody else that meets the strengths of the position, and definitely, but you'll never, the work will always be there, but you won't. And so it's important to take that time for yourself. So, Dorota, how has your story shaped who you are today?
It changed my life completely. I definitely would not be here. But the clutter aside, not even mentioning the mess. But I I've learned how to set boundaries. And because I've learned first with staff, then I started with people. And it's funny now, like it wasn't funny when that happened, like, but like a lot of people just sort of fell away from my life. And it was really sad when it was happening, but actually I'm so happy that it had happened. And it was also, the moment where I couldn't understand, if we were friends, why aren't you being with me in that hard moment for me, right? And I also had to understand that my toxic behaviors played, sorry, a huge part in this as well. And I can only see it now because I have learned how to set those boundaries, and that, some behaviors are okay, some behaviors are not okay.
Mhm.
And it's, all well and dandy to blame other people for whatever is happening, but then having a harder look at ourselves. And, I knew that, I know now that there was some very toxic behaviors from me as well, in those friendships. But, it's so much easier for me now to speak with clients, to speak with people. I'm way more open.
Mhm.
We're here on this podcast talking together. Um, and I don't think I'd be ever able to do that in the past, had I not gone through that change. So there's just my whole life right now, I feel free, I feel confident, I feel certain in my decisions. I feel like if I say no to you, that's not the end of the world. And for people pleasers, like it's just huge. So yeah, there's just so many, many, many things,
Mhm.
and I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world, even though it did cost me a lot.
And and that's okay too, because when you shift, you're gonna have to shift your surroundings and those inner circles as well, um, because where you are. So you mentioned toxic traits, and you mentioned clutter, and just kind of being in a mind space that probably wasn't healthy for you. But when you decide to make a decision to shift that for for the betterment of you, right? Uh, Things around you shift too. So not only are you able to, organize and set up your aesthetics the way you need it to function for you, but then you started making boundaries for people, and sometimes those people that, like you mentioned, friends that weren't there for you during the hard time, those are the people that are going to be stepping off the train with you, the train, because you are moving forward and they've served their purpose when it was needed, and now it's time for you to continue forward, and you bring new people on board that are going to uplift you, that are going to continue to motivate you and push you forward and encourage you and be there during those hard times. So I think that's a beautiful thing that you've mentioned as well. Another question that I have for you is, let's say there's somebody that's sitting in the middle of their living room and they just looked up and they realize they are where you once were. What kind of advice would you give that person?
First of all, give yourself grace, right? There is nothing wrong with you, absolutely nothing wrong with you. And give yourself grace. And I promise you, listening to this, that there is a way out. It might feel like there isn't. And but there is, and all it takes is just making the decision that you want to change and committing to it, right? I have decided, this is my favorite sentence ever. I have decided that I'm going to change my whatever, right? I have decided that I will do this, this, and that. This this has this very powerful claiming energy, right? If you claim it, it's there. Because if you think, if there is a desire to change the either the surroundings or life or like anything, there is a version of you out there that already has this life, right?
Right.
I absolutely love Abraham Hicks, so I recommend to everyone to listen to them. But there is already a version of you who has that. All that you have to do is just match it. So what
Mhm.
I mean by that is just claim it and take those first steps. And no matter how much clutter there is, whether it's small, huge, I mean, mountains, every item that you get rid of takes you closer. It's going to take time, and it's fine. You have the rest of your life to do that. We want quick solutions. We want it to be quick. but when it's quick, it usually never works long term. So make a decision, and there is hope, there is a way out. Make a decision and start having a look, like, what can I do today for the better life tomorrow?
Mm, such good advice. And so, Dorota, my question that I have for you, and I ask this of all my guests, it's one of legacy and impact. If today were your last day, what would you want to be remembered for?
Oh wow. If today was my last day, I would, oh, I got goosebumps because I really feel that helping women in a way that, I mean, no one else does what I do in a way that I do it, with the nervous system regulation and, um, you know, every single strategy of decluttering strategy works. But I really would love people to remember me that, she's the one who told us that, if I breathe and concentrate on myself and my well-being and really, energetically match that desire of who I want to be, the clutter doesn't really matter. Like, it's just going to disappear because you're going to become the person who just deals with it. But it takes time, it takes commitment. So I would love to be like remembered by this.
Mm. And that's so good too. And it's a real eye opener, especially for those that caught it, is when you start embracing the person you want to be internally, you're going to see those results happen in your reality. And so that one was a really good piece of advice there, a piece of just, a highlight. So that's why I'm going to bring it to the forefront, because it is important to understand that when you can believe who you truly want to become internally, you will see those reality shifts. Because here's the thing: who you believe you are is already reflected on your external and in your reality. So that might be something to think about as you look around this moment, those that are listening, and just take some reflection there and see if that's where you want to be. That's definitely a moment of challenge right there. So Dorota, my final question to you is, if you could leave maybe a bit of truth or a word of encouragement to someone out there who's still trying to figure out what their life purpose needs to look like, what would it be?
You always have a choice, right? You are always at the crossroad, and every single minute of your life, you are always at the crossroad. You can either decide to go what and do what's familiar, what you've always been doing, and just know that if you go, like, let's say to the left, right, the road, sorry, to the left will take you to, doing the same thing that you've been doing every single day, but you always get the same result. But the other road is the future you, the one that you want to become. And if you start taking steps towards there, you will get there eventually, right? But every single minute you have a choice, always.
The choice is yours, friends out there. Dorota, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your heart, your story, and your light with us today. Conversations like this remind us that purpose isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, growing through the things that you go through, and understanding that every step matters. Here at the Good Morning Minute and through the Empower Her Steps movement, we believe every woman has a calling worth discovering and a voice worth using. So friend, wherever you are today, remember, your purpose is powerful and you're not walking alone. So friend, until next time, keep rising, keep trusting, keep walking boldly into the life God has designed for you. I'm Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.